Hello, my name is Lucas, and in this video, we're going to take a look at MyMind. No, not that mind. We're going to take a look at a tool that you can access by going to mymind.com. Lizzie, one of the creators, reached out to me as hundreds of folks building stuff do on a monthly basis. I only respond to the inquiries that I think are actually compelling. There's lots of copycats. There's lots of uninspired productivity tech out there. But MyMind comes with a promise that got me interested, which is remember everything, but organize nothing. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you know how big I am on organizing. But at the same time, I'm always open to learn about new ideas. I'm not married to a specific message. In fact, the reason I strongly advocate for organizing is because by default, even the apps that should help us get more productive require a manual investment from our side to organize them in a way that reflects our minds, in a way that represents our lives. What MyMind promises is forget about that. You don't need to do that anymore. And in this video, you'll see how it works. I was compelled. I hope you will find it interesting as well. Feel free to use the timestamps in the description to jump right into the demo, but I recommend you stick around for the entire video to also get some questions answered. Hope you enjoy. You can create an account using the link in the description. And now, please welcome Lizzie from MyMind. What was the team's main inspiration behind creating MyMind? What needs to change about the existing productivity app ecosystem that we have now?
Like everything we've built, and we have a few different products, it came from a personal need first and foremost. So we were feeling something, our founders were feeling something, and kind of connected over this feeling, which I think we realize is a pretty universal feeling, something you've expressed as well, which is that a lot of our lives are carried out online today. And it's created this chaotic fragmentation, especially as creative people. All of our inspiration, our information, our images, our notes, our ideas, they're scattered across the internet, across different devices. We save screenshots to our camera roll. We save files to our desktop. We save things to social media, different apps. They each have their own bookmarking features. We have folders in Dropbox, notes in random apps. We email things to ourselves. So it's just like a mess. And I think that's created this sort of uneasy feeling of anxiety. And so then we turn to our tools, which are supposed to help us manage all of this, right? So we try organizing ourselves, we try creating all of these systems, and that ultimately makes us more anxious because then we're trying to keep up with our tools on top of all of the things that we care about. And we're creating all of these organization systems and folders. We're trying to reach inbox zero. It's all with good intentions, but it's not sustainable and we can't keep up with it. So the anxiety increases. And ultimately, we envisioned a place, and we had it for years before we created MyMind, but we envisioned one place to put everything and then one place to find it. And that is what led us to MyMind. And that's ultimately still its main purpose.
The ultimate capture tool.
Yes. And importantly, somewhere private, because what also comes with online is this constant performance and this constant curating. And it's at every level. We're curating our Instagram, where everything is in a feed. Every action we take online, from our music even to Venmo, our transactions are public. So that's a big part of MyMind, is creating this safe place where we're not performing, we're not curating, we're not bombarded with ads every return, we're not selling our data. It's meant to be this private treasure trove of things that you love, things that inspire you, that give you energy, all in one place where you can easily find it.
Very interesting. You just gave a couple of examples that I'm sure many folks watching can identify with, even productivity geeks like myself, who also very much believe in a single source of truth to capture everything into. I find myself still sometimes emailing myself, or some of the other examples you've mentioned.
Mhm.
I am very much experienced also personally with the stress that comes with it, especially before I had somewhat of a system. It produces anxiety. You forget things. Let's not forget that either.
Yes.
You forget a lot
Yes.
because you don't even remember where you put everything.
Exactly.
So it's
Is
literally,
it your role? Is it on your desktop? Is it in a Slack message you sent yourself that disappeared 2 days later?
so
Yeah.
are you saying that my mind is able to replace all of that? Or is it a different philosophy? How should people watching this who've never heard of my mind position it as an alternative to that problem?
Ideally, yes, it can serve a lot of these sort of pieced together systems we've created for ourselves. You can put your notes in there. You can save bookmarks, links to articles, websites, products in there. You can save images in there. It's a very visual, beautiful app. So a lot of creative people are using it to create mood boards or to research a project. You can save your reading highlights in there. I track my reading and books I want to read, movies I want to watch in there. I'm always creating little to-do lists, taking notes in meetings, drafting articles. I do a lot of writing. So yeah, it's fulfilled a lot of those things for me. Now, is it going to replace every app? That's the dream, I guess, anytime you start using a new app. I think there's still a place for some things in your workflow. So we like to think of my mind as this initial place where all of the fragile first ideas go, where no one's
Right.
judging them, all of the things that you're interested in the moment. Maybe you won't be later, but you're going to save it for now because you want to come back to it. The things that typically get away from you or that you'll forget. Yeah, it's serving a lot of those things for me now and to the point where I don't really even think about using it or putting anything there. It's just like I'm on my phone scrolling or I'm online and I'm just putting it all casually,
Right.
civilly in my mind.
Right. So you don't have to think about it. It's a very automated workflow for you and for any
Yep.
user. They can literally just save it and move on without
Yep.
worrying about, hey, what did I want to save through other means? Interesting. We'll have a look at it later on when you give us a little walkthrough, of course. Now, I'm also very curious about how my mind is structured. And what's mainly struck me is how you position yourselves as different from other, can I call this a knowledge management tool? Would that be fair to say, like a personal knowledge management tool,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In that it's actually goes against organizing, or at least it goes against the idea that you as a user have to organize it yourself. The classic approach that most apps have is one where folders with lists and sublists and perhaps tags as well and filters to make it all really neat. But it's all up to you to design that and to organize it yourself. But you're
Right.
saying, forget about it. Forget about organizing yourself. How does that work? What's the alternative to organizing yourself?
Yeah. And this is part of what you expressed before and what I expressed just now, in that we felt that the folders and all of these systems we create, while we have good intentions, we're just creating this illusion of productivity for ourselves. Like we create all of our folders and our subfolders and we label things perfectly. And then we have to turn around and do it again the next day. And we have to constantly maintain and keep up with that. Now, with my mind, as you said, there's no folders, there's no organization system. It's enhanced with AI. So the AI is doing a lot of that, all of that for you. So you save something, my mind knows that it's an image. My mind knows that there's a boat in the image. My mind knows it's an article. My mind can scan the article for you and pull out relevant keywords so that it will find it for you later. Then also, it's very visual. So you're seeing, it's meant to be an extension of your real mind. And our real mind is chaotic and we don't have things in folders. We just resurface a thought or a memory, and it's meant to support that the way your real mind works. It's very visual. There's a lot of visual cues, as I'll show you as we walk through it, that can prompt a memory, or if you can remember a single keyword, you can find it. So it's like a Google search for your own brain or a search engine just for
Right.
you.
Interesting. I like that. I like it. Another way that our minds work, though, is through association. So I think, like you've said, the spontaneous surfacing of thoughts is very much an element of our minds that makes it very different from a lot of these traditional apps. Another way is through association. So one thought surfaces or an impression arrives, and then another related impression arrives as well. It creates this chain, this link. Is that also reflected in my mind somehow?
Yeah. And that you might know that you saved a specific article. You don't know what it was called. You don't know the headline, but you remember one specific word you read in it, or you remember one word from the headline. So you're using that kind of chain of thought to find what you need in my mind. So you might have saved an article about the 10 best restaurants in New York. All you remember is the word New York. and you can search it. So my mind is seeing and recognizes all of the surrounding information that might go with that memory and gives you
Mm.
those jumping off points, whether it's visually or with keywords, or it can even recognize an object or words within an image by either scrolling or searching your mind. The idea is that you get there instantly, ideally instantly, because it knows what you're looking for and it can help you get there.
And even though it knows all that, even though there's AI working in the background to recognize what something is, it's all private. Can you explain in a bit more detail how that is set up? What measures you've taken, if you can share any, to actually protect users' privacy?
Yeah. First of all, when you sign up, you're signing up via Google or Apple, and that's because it's the safest way to protect your information. We don't store any of that. And then the content we do store, which is, of course, all of the things you save to your mind, it's encrypted. And I have notes here from our engineer, actually, because he does know the more the technical things than I do. But there's a lot of encryption algorithms, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes technically to protect your information. We don't even have access to it ourselves. And then, of course, we want you to be able to use MyMind forever. We plan to be around forever. But if you don't, we're not storing any information after the fact. It's all deleted off of our servers. It's all in the cloud initially and then deleted off of our servers later. It's our number one priority to make sure that you feel safe putting things in there and keeping things in there.
I appreciate you consulting with your engineers, and I recognize if you're not a techie yourself that this is an intimidating question. But I,
I have notes here about using 256-bit encryption algorithms if
oh
you want
yeah,
to kind of
sure,
stuff.
sure. I have a background in the web hosting industry, even though it's in sales. So I am not a developer, but I can definitely understand the lingo quite well. And I know that many of folks in my audience often cite concerns about other tools with their privacy terms and conditions, etc. And they are interested in it, which is why I definitely wanted to bring it up. So if you have additional resources to share that we can perhaps put in the description for them to consult, that would be great, because yeah, privacy friendly productivity apps like that is very much in high demand. I can tell you that from what I've observed. So thank you for sharing those details.
All right. First, I would say, compared to other tools, don't think about using my mind. Think about it as an extension of your real mind. Like I said, it's always available in the background without having to consciously use it. You can just go about your regular day or workflow online and save things that interest you along the way. And that's on mobile, desktop. We have a lot of various apps for wherever you are. So, for example, I'm looking at these shoes online using the browser extension. I save them with a click and I move on. Or I see this dress, I can right click, save it to my mind, and the image is saved. I'm planning a trip to Greece. I'm reading this article. I can highlight the text in the article and right click, save it to my mind. This is great if there's bits and pieces of something that you want to remember. You don't necessarily want to keep the whole article or a whole email inside your mind. Or a quote, for example, if I highlight it, including the quotation marks, right click and save, it's in my mind. Or a tweet, for example, I'm just going to hit that save button again. A video, you can save with a click. Here's a meme on Tumblr that I appreciate. I'm going to right click that, add it to my mind. So as you can see, I didn't stop or break my workflow. I just added everything with a click along the way. But the magic really happens once you go back to your mind. It's all instantly in there. Now, I didn't organize anything, I didn't label anything, but it's all immediately and automatically organized for me. So the tweet looks like a tweet, the video looks like a video, the image is an image. We have the product here with the price, we have the article I saved. It's all categorized in the background in your mind. If I want to find it later, I can go ahead and search Nike, for example, to find the shoes, or I could search shoes to see all the shoes I've saved. I could search dress. I see all the dresses I've saved to my mind. Here, my mind has recognized the brand of the dress. So I could search the brand and find it that way. That's nothing that I labeled or organized myself. I could search read later to see the article that I saved, or I could search articles to find all of the articles within my mind. I could search any word from the highlight to find it, or I could see all my highlights in one place. The video, I know it was an Anthony Bourdain video. I search Anthony Bourdain or I search parts unknown or YouTube. And like I said, it's just whatever cue comes to mind and you can find it. It's great because I didn't create any folders for this. I didn't label anything. It's all in one place and it might seem like that'd be chaotic, but all you do is search and it's right in front of you. And then, of course, you can take it even further if you want. For example, I'm reading this article. I want to add a little note to research this place later. Or I could read an entire article within my mind without any distractions. My mind strips away the ads and all their clutter. So we have this nice reading mode as well. I could, if something is a priority for this week, for example, I could drag it to the top of my mind where it's the main focus, or drag it back out when it's not. And then here you see this new feature that we just released actually called Spaces. So this is a nice bridge for the people who are still attached to the folders or the collections, the old way of doing things. It creates that sense of order, yet you're not having to manually organize anything at all. For example, I can search all of my to-dos and save it as a smart space. Now it'll be right here and I can return to it with a click. And anytime I add a new to do, it's going to automatically be filed away in this space for me. So I don't have to manually organize anything. It's just recognizing my search term. And you can do that with tags. You could do that with images, however you'd like to save your space. And my mind recognizes it, files it away for you where you can return to it later. So here you see this the notes, the images, the articles, the products that I'm thinking about for this Greece trip, they're all in one place. The
And
same.
I can imagine that some of that was automatic. If you could go back to the Greece space for just a second, please. So what we're seeing here is something that's very much obviously related, like that photograph of a restaurant there, purchasing the tickets. But I'm also seeing, like you said, these articles of clothing, these slippers and a pair of shoes. I can imagine those two were more manually associated with Greece because that is probably far fetched to expect an AI to recognize that deeply that this would have to do with Greece, correct? So could you show how you added this association with either the pair of shoes or those slippers there with Greece?
Yeah, great questions. So if it was something like to do's, for example, my mind knows everything that falls within that category within those search terms matches your space and will file it for you, or articles that say read later, something like that. In this case, I tagged, I believe I tagged then. I either tagged, okay, in this case, you can manually add something. So here, if I want to add this video, I add it to,
I
so if it
see.
doesn't automatically fit in, I right click and I save it. Or you could, it depends how you like to organize yourself. If you wanted to tag things and every time you search that tag, or every time you add that tag to an item, it will automatically add that to your mind or
Mhm.
to your space. So there is the more manual option if you wanted, or if something doesn't make sense together in the same space. Otherwise, my mind can recognize a lot of that and do it for you.
Having said that, though, as you've said, it's more of a feature for folks to transition into letting go of organization. So it's just, even though it's there, would you
Yep.
say eventually you'll want to stop even using this? Or would you say there is a permanent benefit to actually using spaces?
Yeah, honestly, I prefer to just search still. If
Mhm.
I don't mind my dog, if I want to see all my to-dos, I can search my to-dos. In cases like this, where the things don't necessarily all belong together in a search term, it might be nice. It might still be a nice option. But
Right.
no, I think the core feature of my mind is the search, and it will do a lot of that for you. But it's like I said, it's a nice bridge for those who are still warming up to the idea of no folders. I did want to also show you another feature we have called serendipity, which came from the idea that a lot of tools and bookmarking tools specifically, things tend to fall or sink to the bottom. And we don't want my mind to become this passive, static place necessarily where you just dump everything and forget about it. And this was a nice way to to keep your mind fresh, to resurface things you might have forgotten about, and then also reinforce your memory and your connection to those things. So here we've entered this serendipity mode. We've resurfaced a card that I saved to my mind, and I can decide whether or not I want to keep it, whether or not it's still important to me. In this case, I'm going to keep it and it's still in my mind. Here is a tweet. I'm going to keep that as well. Here's an image I might have forgotten about, a meme or whatever. I'm going to keep it. This inspiration for apartment decor, I don't need it any longer. I forget it and it's moved to my trash where it'll
Mhm.
actually deleted later. So it's a nice way to just not only continually refresh and reinforce your memory, but keep your mind clean because while we don't want you to feel like you need to curate and organize your mind, we do want it to be filled with things you actually care about and
Yeah.
be a place that energizes and inspires you. This is a fun and playful way to do that. It almost feels like a game. And we are about to actually release this on mobile as well, which feels even more like a game. You're swiping back and forth.
Right. Yeah. Instead of having a classic list with check boxes, you scan through the title. You often don't see the details of what's inside, whether it's an image you have to double click and then open. Oh, yeah, maybe this I'll keep. Maybe this I'll move to another list. Maybe this I'll delete. I can see how this is a much more fun and perhaps even more intuitive way to go about keeping your minds, as you've said, not organized, but it's clean. Yes, that does feel good. So it's a limited set of it just randomly pulls a limited set of items from your My Mind, and there's an end to it. Because I was going to ask, can this in theory just go on forever? But the answer is no. You can just obviously do it again if you want to, but it's not like you can get sucked into it and just keep going and get this addictive feeling almost, I can imagine.
Exactly. Yeah, it's meant to be like your 2-minute coffee break.
Right.
Step away, you have a break between tasks. Jump in here, you refresh your real mind and your mind at the same time. And then it's a 2-minute experience. If you want to go around and do another round, you can. But yeah, we don't necessarily want to suck you in, but rather just form a connection with the things that you've saved and keep it fresh. Yeah. And then every time you're cycling through new things and rediscovering things that you might have forgotten about before.
Very cool. And you just mentioned that this is coming to mobile. Were you referring to this particular feature or were you referring to the entire My Mind experience?
So we already have mobile apps, Android and iOS, but the Serendipity experience is coming soon to mobile. That's something that we're beta testing now, along with spaces for mobile.
Very cool. All right. Is there anything else you would like to demonstrate before we jump back into the questions?
I think those are the main things. A big part of my mind is that there's no right way to use it.
Mm.
People use it for many different things. And as you can see, from a lot of different types of information. So you'll discover a lot of different ways to use it and a lot of little features along the way.
Yeah, I can imagine for sure. And honestly, I'm very compelled to try this out myself. I'm compelled at how, for example, here it recognizes the price, adds it as a intuitive looking label. There's probably, yeah, there's a link to view the product. I always loved Evernote, web clipping feature, which strips any external fluff and retains the core message of an article or a product based on this one. And this is, in my opinion, does it even better than Evernote ever has done. So kudos there to you and to the team. I'm very curious once I've filled this up with a set of items to what degree the AI can find stuff. I've been looking at this kind of dark gray, black dress there, and I
Mhm.
was just curious, hey, what if I search for like black colored clothing or black dress? Will that also recognize? And it does. Well, there you go. And other dresses as well. Interesting.
And you'll see all of the other items that you might search are tagged here, and there's still more going on behind the scenes as
Right.
well. But this kind of gives you an idea of everything it's indexed and analyzed just about this dress. So nowhere does it say that this is a Paloma wool dress, but it knows it's a Paloma wool dress. And then there's a lot of other fun little
Right.
features. For
Yeah.
example, it's pulling out the main colors here. A lot of designers really appreciate that. You can copy the hex code and save it for later. So it's a really cool way to discover color palettes and or you could save your own color palettes. One knows the year, the season that the dress came out. So yeah, there's a lot that you might not even necessarily remember yourself, but that might prompt you to find it or remember it later.
Very cool. Yeah, a friend of mine is a fashion designer, and I'm definitely going to have him watch this video and try this out because I think he will really love this. Very
And
interesting.
that reminds me, so on the surface, there's these simple searches, for example, shoes. But then you can go deeper if you want, which we call a deep search. So if you've saved furniture to your mind, you only want to see the black furniture. You type your search term, you hit enter, you add black,
Mm,
and narrow down your searches as well. You could search notes, hit enter, and add, I don't know when I last served or saved notes. If we have a time-based search. So once you hit enter and you see this colorful circle, it's only searching notes that you saved in June, for example. So there's a lot of different ways to narrow down the information. So you see only subsections of the information, which is a really cool way, for example, to make a mood board as a designer or a fashion designer or an interior designer. You could search all your images, or you could just search interiors, or you can just search couches. In this case, I saved this meme. Another cool feature, it's reading the text inside of the image.
mm.
So search is pretty smart. And depending on what you need to do, you can probably do it in an intuitive way. We don't want you to have to necessarily think about all the different features, but that it just works for you.
Yeah, and I think one of the questions that I did have prepared, but I think it's very applicable here. And now that we've seen all this, we've all seen how AI has developed over the past months and is at a rapid pace becoming more accessible to everyone. ChatGPT being the most famous example, probably, with its distinguishing factor being that it's so natural. You can speak to it as if it's a human, as if it's a mind of its own, and you can prompt it. So what I've seen here so far is the more classic search, which is obviously fast. So it works. But I am wondering what you could tell me about the future of my minds, whether we're also going to be able to prompt our minds externally. Let's say I'm a fashion designer, stick with that example, and I'm like, hey, I want to design a shoe inspired by shoes I've seen in 2018 because that was a special period of my life. I don't know. And obviously, you can type shoes 2018 probably and receive the inputs. But let's say I add something to that prompt to also give me some ideas for design, right? So similar to how ChatGPT works. Is any of that on the table? Is any of that being worked on? What could you tell us about the future of how we can interact with our external minds?
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. And our search is evolving every day, depending on, you know, how people are using it. We're learning a lot about it ourselves from all the different people using it. And all the fast developments of AI. So yeah, a more natural language or prompt based search is certainly a possibility. Also, there's the whole idea of making connections within your mind and or seeing trends within your mind. So for example, if you've saved enough there, your mind could eventually tell you really you appreciate this, you lean this way politically, or you tend to
Mm.
read a lot of articles from this magazine, or your mind is mostly blue. You save a lot of blue things to your mind. And that is just at its most simple, and the possibilities in terms of making connections, in terms of revealing trends or connections that you weren't aware of, in terms of suggesting ideas, it's all definitely on the table. For now, we are focused on the core mission, which is saving and finding everything you want to remember in a private place and just making the foundation of that work even better before we get necessarily carried away with the many possibilities of it. We want to make sure it's really good at what it's at first meant to do.
Sure. Yeah, I can easily get carried away with ideating. You do need to first finish what you've started,
Yeah.
make that robust, and then move on to the next thing. But I'm glad that it's on your radar because I do feel like it is a very exciting possibility. So moving from there to more towards the types of users that you may have. I think you've already alluded to it a couple times already with creatives. I can definitely see that now. Designers, like I said, this friend of mine, I think he's a perfect fit, the fashion designer with the color palette at the left bottom. So could you share with us perhaps a personal or one of your customers, like an anecdote of how My Mind has made a difference in their lives or in their creative process, in their workflow?
Yeah. Yes. What we're seeing so far is this is, like I said, this initial space to gather, to collect your ideas, to let those sort of gradual first thoughts formulate without anyone watching, without the pressure to collaborate. A lot of people ask, "Can I share my boards? Can I connect with a friend? Can I share what's on my mind?" And we will allow people to you can temporarily share a specific card for 24 hours before it disappears. So we realize that there are some cases where you want to do that. But otherwise, we see people using it as this initial space to get inspired, to come back to those ideas that might have slipped away before, to formulate them, and even show you a focus mode where you can take a draft or a quick idea of something and in a clean, private place and expand on that. So in various forms, we're seeing people use it that way, whether I've seen someone like scientists using it to collect research for a project. I've seen, like I said, designers, fashion designers using it for mood boards, people like me using it to write notes, write articles. I've seen a gamer using it to create a video game catalog. And what's really cool is that it's become this sort of it's something you're proud of. People will screenshot their mind and sit and share it online, even though it's meant to be private because it's manifesting and visualizing your identity. And because it's in this clean space without any other distractions, it's visually inspiring and you see everything in one place that's typically, like I said, scattered. So I think that's something I really appreciate about it is that, for example, I'm saving a lot of decor to decorate my apartment, and I'm realizing a lot of this is one specific style I didn't even recognize that I love. So it's in that sort of quiet way, it's helping you see yourself in a different way, to identify things you love, to remember things you love, and to reinforce that and create this special place for yourself, just for yourself and not for anyone else, which is maybe the biggest distinction.
It is. I was thinking also as I was watching the demo you've just presented us with, as in this is also a pretty powerful self-reflection exercise
Hmm.
by looking at this, as you've said, and you're almost forced to reflect just by watching this. This is obviously a demo setup, but you get a glimpse into your own minds, preferably. Obviously, this is private, but like you've said, people apparently want to share it because it's so intuitive to them.
Yes.
That makes it very compelling. I guess the one thing, the caveat there, or at least something to be aware of, is it does sound like you do have to really invest in it to get the full benefits, right? It's not like you can continue onwards with using My Mind for saving specific stuff only, but also use three, four, five other capture apps at the same time. You're going to lose some of the benefits, I would assume, because it is all linked through AI for you. It
Mm.
doesn't pull data from other sources, of course. Would you agree,
Right.
or would you say it's not that important?
You can use other apps, of course, and people do. The idea, though, is that we're winnowing down our dependency on all of these apps. And that's part of what inspired it in the first place is that it's exhausting to manage all of these different apps. So, yeah, I think you get the most out of it if this is your main space. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that you're still going to have if this is not a word processor. So you're still going to if you're writing a script for example for a movie or you want to write a novel, you're not writing your novel in my mind. You're going to take these ideas from my mind and bring it somewhere else. You might flesh out the ideas, you kept your notes. This my mind is for where you wake up in the middle of the night and something has hit you and you want to get it down immediately without forgetting it. And then you take that and it becomes your novel maybe somewhere else. So, of course, you're going to be using some other apps in your life still, but this and what it's been for me is like I said this sort of treasure trove where everything comes together. So, yeah, the more you use it, the more it benefits you and the more you see the magic behind it. Features like serendipity aren't going to be very useful if you're not using my mind,
Right.
right?
Exactly. Exactly.
But like I said, I don't feel as though I use it and we don't encourage people When people are just getting started, we say take it slow. Don't feel like you have to figure out how to use it correctly or curate anything or even import a bunch of things from your old apps into my mind. It's a fresh start. Just save things as you go, and then you'll slowly come back to it once you need something, and the magic will be revealed more
Really?
easily. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it's on mobile really helps because a lot of us are on the roads. We shouldn't be always in front of our big screen. We always have our little screen with us, though, our phones, and taking pictures of things, capturing things that resonate or ideas that come to us in inspiring locations. So having your external mind with you there, I think is very essential. But you've got that covered, and the features that we've seen here are going to be rolled out to mobile as well. The core feature already is, of course, but serendipity is coming. And from what I take it, you're going to continue committing to having the full experience on any platform, correct? Whether that's on desktop or mobile, whether it's Android or iOS.
Yep, yep, and we have a Mac app, Mac OS app
Right,
as well. Yeah, that's the idea that it's just it feels like the closest thing when you need it. So
right.
whether you're in the train and you wanna get down a note or idea, or you're on your desktop, doing your regular workday, it should be for you. It should be there for you. And we're also releasing new features that support that idea. For example, with our Mac OS app, we just released a little quick notes feature where you click the icon in your Mac OS menu bar, and there's a quick note to capture your idea on the go. You save it, you don't even have to open
Mhm.
MyMind. And that our notes specifically, and you'll see this throughout, whether it's the reading experience, the design overall, it's meant to be simple and you're not meant to think about the features or have to obviously play around with filters and drop downs. Rather, it's just intuitive. You don't have to think about using it. It's just there when you need it. You jot it down, for example, a note, and you move on. You're not messing with formatting and you're not organizing. It's all done for you.
Yeah. In the defense of organizing and filters, which I've done extensively, it is the only thing you can do to create an intuitive experience with apps that aren't pre-designed to be intuitive as this is. With apps that are at their core databases with lists and tables and tags and whatnot, right? So you invest in designing an infrastructure and that can take a lot of time. That's very true, especially if you have multiple. So even within that kind of paradigm, I still advocate to try and keep it within one source of truth. But I will say I'm very compelled with what I've seen here. It's definitely an interesting, different perspective on things. I can absolutely see how intuitive it is, and I'm definitely going to give it a spin myself. So for anybody who's watching, who would like to try this as well, how does pricing work? What are the plans if you want to commit to using my mind long term? Can I try it out? How does that work?
Yeah. So we do have a free trial, and that's not limited by time because, like I said, we don't want you to feel rushed. So it's limited by storage. So
Mm,
once you hit a certain amount, we assume that you've invested in your mind at this point and you're ready to move forward with that paid plan. And then from there, we call it Student of Life, which is basically every mind feature minus reading mode. And you can do that monthly. So it's a very low commitment, low risk if you want to try it for a month and see how you like it. And then we also have our mastermind plan, which is the full thing, any new features we release and special features that's going to be part of mastermind, which you can do monthly or annually. So, yeah, it is a monthly or annual commitment, and you have some options there.
understood. Thank you so much for the demonstration today, Lizzie. Before we say goodbye, is there anything else you would like to share with my audience who are mostly productivity geeks? And any last remarks, perhaps, for them?
Yeah, I would say throw everything that you think about productivity and a tech tool out the window.
Hmm.
And when you approach my mind, we're not trying to compare ourselves to those tools. It's a new, different experience, but I think it is the future of organization. And once you use it, and that as you continually use it, you're gonna love it.
Very
So,
bold. I like it. Thank you,
yeah,
Lizzie.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Hope this was an interesting video. I don't do any sponsored videos because I want it to be authentic. This video was not sponsored in any way. I only responded to it out of my own interest. If you feel interested as well, or if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. The MyMind team has promised to look at them 1 week after this video has been uploaded, so you may just get an answer straight from the source. Thanks so much for watching, and let us also know in the comments what you think of MyMind if you've tried it.